Welcome to the Digital Enterprise Society podcast, addressing all aspects of the digital enterprise, inspiring connection without boundaries and creation without limits. Thank you for tuning in. Here are your hosts, Thom Singer and Craig Brown.
Welcome back to the Digital Enterprise Society podcast. Thanks for coming along on this journey of this brand new show that is designed to be a resource for those who work in and around PLM. The Digital Enterprise Society is a forum for the exchange of ideas surrounding the tools, processes, and practices used across the product lifecycle. To learn more, visit digitalenterprisesociety.org. Hey, my name is Thom Singer, and I have the honor to be the co-host of this show along with Craig Brown, an industry leader and former PLM leader at GM. Craig, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Tom. Thanks for asking. And the summer has arrived in Michigan. So for those of you that use this as a weather forecast, it is now hot in Michigan.
I was going to say, last week you were complaining about how cold it was in Michigan.
Yeah, you can never satisfy us.
So, Craig, I'm excited about today's guest. I think we're starting to get the flow of this show, and I think we're going to have some fun today. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. I like talking to the younger generation. It's interesting to see what's on their mind, and we're looking forward to today's conversation.
Well, each week we try very hard to bring interesting interviews and other ideas that are going to help all the listeners enhance and grow their careers. And today is going to be awesome because we are talking to Brandon Wildman. Now, he is an advanced manufacturing engineer at Mahindra Automotive, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his background and all that. So, Brandon, how are you doing today? And
Good.
Why don't you go ahead?
I'm happy to be on.
Oh, we're happy to have you. Why don't you go ahead and tell us your backstory? How did you get to where you are today?
Okay, so backstory for me. After I got out of the Marine Corps, 22 years old, figuring out what I was going to do. I was pretty good at math. I did signals intelligence while in the service. And I liked automotive, so I got in engineering and went to Wayne State University, got my degree there, mechanical engineering. And I got an internship at Ford Motor Company, started working in bill of material processes early on. PLM had been around for a while, but they were kind of just ramping up. Siemens had just was starting to take over UGS and getting PLM on track. So I worked from there. I worked in advanced vehicle bill of material, digital tools and methods while I was there. And then I worked offsite with some Siemens people, and they told me they would like me, to come join Siemens, look into what they had. They had this Genesis program for, college graduates or, the younger generation, as you'd mentioned. And I went through there, learned pretty much everything about Team Center, loading software, the GUI, the interface, everything I could learn about Team Center. They put me back on the Ford account when I came back because I'm from Michigan here. So I was back on the Ford account there, working for Siemens. And then Ford offered me a direct position to come back and, supervise the group on their end. So that's kind of what my Ford life was like. And then a buddy of mine who worked in program management at Mahindra told me that they were looking for advanced manufacturing engineer. And they thought I'd be a good fit. So I came in here and I interviewed with the vice president and the manufacturing, and he liked what he heard. So he's hired me on, and I've been here since about 10 and a half months here.
That's interesting, Brandon. Your experiences are, I think, very typical and very good for someone your age. Just for a moment, compare and contrast Mahindra and Ford. What's it like? Or what's the culture changes, or what are the differences?
So Ford compared to Mahindra, very much different, as Mahindra in North America Tech Center has been here about 6 or 7 years. So they're not exactly a startup, but they opened up as a design shop. And the Marazzo that's being built in India, everything's manufactured in India so far until the program that I'm working on now at Mahindra, which I'll get into in a second. But so comparably to Ford, the culture is, the large OEM environment, there's a huge disconnect between different groups. That program management, PLM, anybody working on any other system, there's a huge disconnect. Nobody really works together. They kind of work in a bubble, and you have trouble getting anything processed through, especially processes. And at Ford, you're very process constrained, almost to the point, in my opinion, when I was at Ford, we'd be in meetings and there'd be a process constraint about, are we green on this? But being green on that didn't necessarily mean it was right or done properly. All that mattered was being green in this meeting, so then people kind of work towards that rather than innovative new ideas on how to do things. So coming here, one of the reasons I wanted to come here was the VP told me, he's like, you're going to have, free reign. We want you to figure out how we want to do the bill of material moving forward, because they're following India process in Team Center, and we're kind of want to get away from that. If PLM wise, using a precise bomb here, and it's not an imprecise bomb, it's not a perpetual bomb yet, but I'm going to move towards that.
Yeah. So this is interesting. I agree with some of your commentaries about big versus small companies. I also think this area of bomb management is really quite important. Maybe elaborate from your point of view, how much of a bomb should be a manual operation versus how much of it could be automated? You used really good words. Some of our audience may not get it. So expand also on perpetual versus a static or a fixed bomb.
Okay. So yes, most definitely, I believe data management itself is very undervalued. Even at Ford, they put money into it, but it's undervalued on how much money, what cost save there is for having the correct parts on the correct builds during the correct time during the build phase. And also,
go ahead. That's fine.
No, I was gonna carry that forward. Your last question about not only the differences between here, but perpetual bomb being more automated than manual, like you had mentioned. I mean, personally, I believe you should automate every single piece of the bill of material that you can. And so for a Ford Motor Company, a perpetual bomb, they use what's called effectivity on their bomb. And if you have a static bomb, we're not using that kind of effectivity here. We've implemented now in our manufacturing bombs some effectivity using an attribute in Team Center called occurrence effectivity, which is how I affect or affect in or affect out the parts on the bill of material when they need to be there. And this is Ford does this more automated process with the perpetual bomb. The way they've set up their effectivity is they're ahead of the game there. Their PLM team is pretty strong there. It's just getting other people to buy into that and use the data properly is more of the issue, I would say, than how they're doing their data management.
Yeah, the bill of materials management in the car business, because it's mass production, has really been driven by the logistics and the how do we keep the plant as efficient as possible. Bringing that upstream into product engineering has been sometimes really a struggle. And of course, those of us designing systems for engineering, we can come up with even better ways to do it, or we think they're better, until we figure out that it's difficult to make that transition back to the logistics side of part management. One of the debates on effectivity is where is it best managed? Is it best managed on the part or on the assembly or on something else? And I think this is where maybe program management struggles, right? Because from a program manager's point of view, you're managing a product, a car, right? Not the parts that go in the car. So, but how do you guys manage effectivity? Is it on the part or is it on the product or some combination of that?
So I agree with you 100% with those statements. But so we'll start here. Yes. So our E-bomb is precise, and they do not use effectivity in the engineering bill of material, which I'm working towards getting something. We've been working on some things here that I want to get the engineering bomb a better handle on that and a better 3D view of the entire vehicle overall. But they're consuming assemblies, and then in our M-bomb, which I have manually created, is what I like to call. The way we use M-bomb here would be called more, let's say a shop floor bomb, right? Because I'm mimicking what's going on the floor. And it's a 150% bomb. I have every single part that we've ever used on this bomb. I'm making it as perpetual as possible so that I can look at any date and time using the occurrence effectivity attribute and look into the bill of material and say, oh, at this point in time, we were using this build phase, we used this part, prototype parts or production parts. And some of that data is lacking. That's why they brought me in, and I've been getting all this information updated as much as possible. But that's how we're using effectivity right now. Occurrence effectivity to affect in and affect out parts off the bill of material. If something's coming in for VP or for job one, we're going to use something else, something different. Then that date I got set in there is going to be when that part's affected in and used on the bomb.
And elaborate on where is that managed? Is it on the assembly or on the part?
Oh, sorry. So the E-bomb, we have assemblies now. For manufacturing purposes, everything's on the part. It's all parts. Everything is assembled, whatever's assembled in a station, we have each station down on the floor. So the M-bomb that I create is like a trim chassis final bomb, the entire trim chassis final together, and then it's all individual parts that make up what's going on the floor. And that brings it to a crossroads of, say, aftermarket sales and things like that, because you need kits. You're going to kit parts up, you're going to kit them to the dealer. So that's another separate issue, you got to work on with the bomb, because you can't take individual parts. You're taking all the parts and kitting them together and then sending them out to the dealer what needs to be there. But it's all on individual part effectivity that we do in the M-bomb here.
Okay. And let me help the audience. how many products are you managing at a given time? Is it a handful or is it dozens?
Well, so right now I've spoken Mahindra North America. What started out as a design center, and that's mainly what we have been. But for the past 2 years, we manufacture. The only thing we manufacture here in North America in Auburn Hills is the Roxor, which is an off-road vehicle, side-by-side off-road vehicle that's been around in India for quite some time. So that's what we manufacture here. We bring in as many parts as we can, shipped overseas over to us, and then again, if you worked on anything that's outside of the country, like even the PLM side, because of not using the perpetual BOM and using Team Center the way that say Ford or another larger company does, there's disconnect between revisions, disconnect between parts that I have to manage over here on this side of the BOM. That's another one of my tasks that I'm working on right now to get rid of.
So this makes a lot of good sense for a small number, even one product, to put Effectivity that way and manage it on the parts. What I've noticed over the years, and I'm coming from a General Motors perspective, is the more those parts are reused across multiple products, the more this precise BOM gets really difficult to manage, at least when you put it on the part. And so I think that's just something to ponder as you come in with the third and fourth and fifth product where you have common components, even common kits that you mentioned, then the challenges will get bigger. But that you still need a set of tools, a set of databases, and that's what product lifecycle management's all about. Then Team Center is one of the best, right? I mean, that's what's used at most car companies these days, managing this complexity. Elaborate a bit then. You talked a lot about the engineering BOM. Do you also have a manufacturing planning BOM, or is it one and the same?
So we have an E-BOM, which ME is assigning all the parts from that E-BOM to my M-BOM that I have created, 150% BOM, trim chassis final, auto trans, manual trans, and it's broken out into each pretty much accessory is almost its own separate mini BOM, I guess you would almost say. Mm-hmm. And then that's why the Effectivity is on the parts. So what matters is the parts. And how we manufacture the vehicle is there's a homegrown system we use here called Biggie. And before Brooks Carey, an employee here, he came along, they were having to batch run these, Roxors 20, 30 at a time. Now we're build to order, custom builds, build to order every time. What happened was, I know GM does this and Ford does as well. In Vicky, everything's assigned an option code. So kind of like an MPAL code at Ford. I'm not sure how they use it at GM, but when you look at a PDL or something, you're going to see the option codes and what each option is. So now in my M-BOM in Team Center that I've created, each one has a usage architecture ID, the option code. So when it filters in through the system, it knows exactly what component we're looking at, what commodity we're looking at.
Yeah, and these option codes. Yeah, go ahead. You're fine.
Okay. So with these option codes, matched with the part number, that's how we build the job BOM using, we use the ERP system here as Plex that we use at Mahindra. So this is Vicky's almost like an interface, takes data from Team Center and Plex, and then it takes the data, puts it back into Plex, and we create job BOMs from there. So we can do build to order, custom colors. We have 400 different colors. We got so many custom jobs that you can build them like that. It's actually the system, the Vicky system is amazing. What it can do.
And as with all manufacturers, they have something like that, right? Because these option codes are really what customers, people like us, are willing to pay for, right? And so the mapping of the option code back to the parts used is well, in many cases, it's a corporate secret how that actually is done. And for those of you listening that don't understand, you're probably not in the mass production business because once you get into mass production, this is one of the keys to profitability, right? Brandon, tell us a bit about where you see the future challenges for PLM, about the technology as well as process.
So future challenges I see, I can start out with Mahindra, for example. When we move on to, we have this side-by-side off-road vehicle, and this is what I've been trying to work towards, cleaning this BOM up completely, giving us, full visibility, cradle to grave of the program, PLM, just flat out product lifecycle management here for the next big program we're going to do. I feel like this is like an exercise because I could manually go through and do this. I mean, we're doing a decent, a pretty high volume, but not like an automotive. We're not doing 30,000 units like we would say if I was doing an MKX, which I used to work on at Ford program management, or an Edge or something like that. But because it's an off-road side-by-side, but the volume's still pretty high. And if things go, if they trend the way they're supposed to be going, and we end up with a U.S. postal contract, which we bid for, that's going to be more like 30,000 units a year. It's going to be a new plant. It's going to be all these things. And I want this BOM to be perfect so that I can take all the processes, like we were just talking about, the process, and move it forward and use it on that program. But as far as industry goes, I think that there's a gap between people outside of PLM understanding the importance of PLM within a company. Like even here, sometimes I go to, a manager or chief engineer of a department, and I say, look, this has got to be done right. This has got to be corrected. Like, oh, that's on my radar, but not right, not at the top. And I'm like, listen, it's a really big deal. The data management works out properly because it also funds inventory. It flows through the inventory. It flows through how we're going to end up with excess inventory. We're losing money here. And there's just complete data management is such a money saver. You just don't see the dollars. You got to be able to wrap your mind around it to put the dollars in place for what's actually being saved, where the cost save can be. And the software itself, though, it's like you said, Teamcenter is, to me, the strongest, most powerful, PLM system that there is out there. And I've worked in a few of them, and it's not just because I worked at Siemens. It's, I'm not there anymore, but it's the most capable. The thing is, the out of the box software is very capable, but it's what you're going to cater to your business and how you're going to do it. Because GM uses Teamcenter different than Ford. Everybody uses Teamcenter with their own additives, and whoever's running the PLM department is going to ensure how you're doing part numbers, prefix-based suffix, how are you going to do these, change level indicators, change management is all decided on, virtually which company you're working at. Teamcenter can do a lot. You just building it properly for your company is the tricky part.
Well, and I think your principle about full visibility, cradle to grave, I think that's really, really smart to look that way. A lot of management, it's interesting. They may know about virtual. They may have come up through virtual if they're a little younger, but they don't really know where the weak points in their whole flow of information are. PLM can make that more visible, right? And you're really close to it, so you can point out to a senior leader or chief, hey, we need to pay attention to this, because they don't have visibility. They don't appreciate the impact of that. And so improving the visibility in the context of the bill of materials, whatever state it's in, I think would be really good. One of your recent assignments was in program management back at Ford. How should PLM be helping program management? And what does program management need to do to learn about PLM?
So in my opinion, I'll go back to Ford when I was working the MKX program, and I was a PDL author as well in my group. So I understand all the MFAL codes and things like that, which would be like the option codes here. And I had already understood data management, so it made my job in program management fairly easy because I understood all the milestones and things we're trying to reach. But that's what program management's about. Like, what milestone are we at? And program management gets a bad rep at the big companies. You were GM, so I know you know this. Or they'll call them ankle biters. Engineers don't want to listen. They don't want to hear from some program management person. Sometimes they're not always engineers, and engineers don't like to take sometimes they don't like to take advice from somebody who's not an engineer. But program management is a huge resource of the company because it actually gets people to get things done. So whether you call them ankle biters or whatever it is, they're there to get things done. But when they pull a report from a system, if they had the data from Teamcenter to show, okay, this is the bill of material at TT build and I'm about to go to the plant and look at it, and you could just go to Teamcenter and pull that out, rifle it through the data right there at the effective date that when TT starts. So you know the bill of material, you know what parts you're looking at. So you have a more accurate look of actual parts that are being built on the vehicle than some other system you're pulling data from, in my opinion. So if you, and most program management people don't even probably have access to Teamcenter at a lot of places, to be honest, and they pull their data from some other homegrown database, but Teamcenter has it all right there. It's filtered out for you. You pull it out, and then when you go to a change control meeting and you're asking suppliers where they're at on this part, or this is what's on the BOM for TT, this is what we need. This is how I would arrange my meetings if I was doing a control plan, and timing for parts, basically.
Yeah, ankle biters. I haven't heard that for in a while, but you're absolutely right. The engineering team, especially the part engineers, they tend to not appreciate why. And part of that is they don't have visibility of the bigger program. But yeah, I think you're exactly right. And I also think, you don't want to list the numbers, right? You'd really like it visual. You'd like a virtual representation of the thing you're now reviewing. And of course, all that data is managed by Teamcenter, including the assembly order, right? So then you could, pull that into program management, and they could have a discussion about a picture, a cartoon of a simulation of the parts moving, rather than a list of numbers that they're trying to do. You said in the beginning of the interview, whether you're green or not based on the metric. Well, yeah. And management wants to do that because they got a lot of things to get through. They just want to see a scorecard, right? But putting them a scorecard that's visual, that's the actual suspension or the actual motor, probably will help make the decisions faster. So any other thoughts you'd like to share with us today about either career or the future of PLM?
The future of PLM, I think, is pretty bright, to be honest. I think this is a large field, and it only gets larger with big data and data analytics. I think that, if you find a passion in this, there's always going to be a job in automotive for you. If you care about getting data management and having data properly, visual, like you said, from EBOM to MBOM, if I can visually show you a 3D CAD model, it's huge, especially when I try to show an assembly process, or if I have to go to an engineer and tell them, look, the way we're doing this on the floor doesn't work. These dimensions might look good here, but it's not on the floor how it works. You can show it right there in the 3D model. It's a huge time saver, but still with all this PLM capability, I still see everywhere I've worked some archaic processes, that are no longer.
Hey, Brandon, so what's your next career step? I like what you're doing. What are you going to do next?
That's up to Mahindra. I currently enjoy the position I'm in. I've learned a great deal here. I currently enjoy who I work with, which is a big part of it. But for my career, I got the vice president here in manufacturing. I'm fairly ambitious, so I'm looking to make my way up. Make some things happen. That's my career path. Yeah, I don't mind working, so I enjoy getting the job done.
Excellent. Hey, Thom, it's back to you.
Hey, Brandon, thank you very much. I think this was a great, I think you shared a lot of great information for people who listen. So thank you for coming in and sharing your story and your thoughts and your ideas with everybody here at the Digital Enterprise Society podcast. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Hey, and thanks to everybody who tuned in. We are up and running now on Spotify. We're on the Apple iTunes and Apple Podcast places that you can subscribe. So now is the time to go and find the podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and make sure that you subscribe and leave a review. If you're liking this show, one of the ways people get to find podcasts, especially new ones, is because people are subscribing and leaving reviews. So please go and do that. So Craig, we're going to be back in next week with another interview with somebody really cool. Do you have anything, any last thoughts here before we sign out?
Just a reminder to all of our listeners, especially those of you that are a lot younger than I am, which means in your 30s.
Everyone, Craig?
Yeah, everyone. Thanks, Thom. Anyways, we'd love to hear your stories, just like we heard Brandon's today. And you guys are the ones that are going to drive the future. People like me can give you our advice, but at the end of the day, you're the generation going to driving it. And so just remember, the Digital Enterprise Society is here to help that. And we're all about connecting without boundaries and creating without limits. So thanks for listening.
Join us next week for more thoughts, ideas, and information in and around product lifecycle management.
You've been listening to the Digital Enterprise Society podcast. Learn more about what you've heard here today at digitalenterprisesociety.org. Join us again next week for